The worst of Yahweh. So, to begin with the worst of Yahweh, let's discuss Leviticus 21:16 to 24. The Lord commanded Moses to say to Aaron, "None of your descendants who has any physical defect may present the food offering to me. This applies to all time to come. No man with any physical defect may make the offering. No one who is blind, lame, disfigured, or deformed. No one with a crippled hand or foot. No one who is hunchback or a dwarf. No one with any eye or skin disease, and no eunuch. No descendant of Aaron, the priest, who has any physical defect, may present the food offering to me. Such a man may eat the food offered to me, both the holy food offering and the very holy food offering. But because he has a physical defect, he shall not come near the sacred curtain or approach the altar. He must not profane these holy things, because I am the Lord and I make them holy." So, despite the belief of Yahweh punishing people and being responsible for ailments and diseases and curses, he's forbidding people and he's judging them for being disabled. He's judging them for having mental disabilities, for physical defects. This is not a loving God. Jesus went around curing those, even on the Sabbath, defying Yahweh. Now in this text, Yahweh hates those who are born with physical defects and mental disabilities and disabilities in general. Jesus loved those with physical defects and mental disabilities and disabilities of all sorts. He would go around curing them. He loved them. His God was loving. God loves everyone. Yahweh, terms and conditions apply. So now let's go read the story of Abraham in Genesis 22:1 to 12. Okay, so let's get into the story of Abraham in Genesis 22. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He called to him, "Abraham," and Abraham answered, "Yes, here I am." "Take your son," God said, "your only son Isaac, whom you love so much, and go to the land of Moriah. There on a mountain that I will show you, offer him as a sacrifice to me." Early the next morning, Abraham cut some wood for the sacrifice, loaded his donkey, and took Isaac and 2 servants with him. They started out for the place that God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham saw the place in the distance. Then he said to the servants, "Stay here with the donkey. The boy and I will go over there and worship, and then we will come back to you." So servants here as well. Abraham has slaves. God doesn't care. Yahweh at least. Abraham made Isaac carry the wood for the sacrifice, and he himself carried a knife and live coals for starting the fire as they walked along together. Now, a knife was also used to slice the throat and they'll burn the body. This was done for human sacrificing too. Isaac said, "Father." He answered, "Yes, my son." Isaac asked, "I see that you have coals and the wood, but where is the lamb for the sacrifice?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide one." And the 2 of them walked on together. When they came to the place which God had told him about, Abraham built an altar and arranged the wood on it. He tied up his son and placed him on the altar on top of the wood. Then he picked up the knife to kill him. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham. He answered, Yes, here I am. Don't hurt the boy, or do anything to him. He said, Now I know that you honor and obey God, because you have not kept back your only son from me. So, even though this was all a test, no loving God would put a loving father through such a test or want to put an innocent child in harm's way. Now, a loving God wouldn't demand blind obedience from his followers. He wouldn't be so petty to demand worship. He wouldn't be so petty to demand blind obedience. Alright, let's get into the times he does accept human sacrificing. Judges 11.29. Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah. He went through Gilead and Manasseh and returned to Mizpah in Gilead, and went to Ammon. Jephthah promised the Lord, If you give me victory over the Ammonites, I will burn as an offering the first person that comes out of my house to meet me. When I come back from the victory, I will offer that person to you as a sacrifice. So a human sacrifice, just the first person that comes out of his house. It could be a slave, it could be family. In this case, it's going to be his daughter, because he was expecting to burn alive a slave for his God, Yahweh, a war god, who was okay with vengeance. So Jephthah crossed the river to fight the Ammonites, and the Lord God gave him victory. He struck at them from Arah to the area round Minnith, 20 cities in all, and as far as Abel Keramim, there was a great slaughter, and the Ammonites were defeated by Israel. Jephthah's daughter, Judges 11.34. When Jephthah went back home to Mizpah, there was his daughter coming out to meet him, dancing and playing the tambourine. She was his only child. When he saw her, he tore his clothes in sorrow and said, "Oh, my daughter, you are breaking my heart. Why must it be you that causes me pain? I have made a solemn promise to the Lord, and I cannot take it back." She said to him, "If you have made a promise to the Lord, do what you said you would do to me, since the Lord has given you revenge on your enemies, the Ammonites." But she asked her father, "Do this one thing for me. Leave me alone for 2 months, so that I can go with my friends to wander in the mountains and grieve that I must die a virgin." He told her to go and sent her away for 2 months. She and her friends went up into the mountains and grieved because she was going to die unmarried and childless. After 2 months, she came back to her father. He did what he had promised the Lord, and she died still a virgin. So he sacrificed her in the name of his war and storm, vengeful deity, Yahweh. Now let's go read Numbers 31.32 to 35. This is the dividing of the spoils of war by the orders of Yahweh. The following is the list of what was captured by the soldiers, in addition to what they kept for themselves: 675,000 sheep and goats, 72,000 cattle, and 61,000 donkeys, and 32,000 virgins. Virgins being aged 9 to 14 back then. This is the list of sacrificial offerings and tribute to the soldiers. The half share of the soldiers was 337,500 sheep and goats, of which 675 were the tax for the Lord. 36,000 cattle for the soldiers, of which 72 were the tax for the Lord. 30,500 donkeys for the soldiers, of which 61 were the tax for the Lord. And 16,000 virgins for the soldiers, forced marriages, that's evil, of which 32 were the tax for the Lord, to either be sacrificed or placed in the temple as virgin brides, doves to be auctioned off to the upper classes of the Jewish elite. Now, it's likely that not all the tribute to the Lord was actually sacrificed to him, but was kept amongst the Jewish nobility. Now, here, human sacrificing is totally accepted, and slavery by this God Yahweh. Jesus was against human sacrificing. He was against harming others, harming children, exactly what Yahweh does. Now, Jesus also spoke of God's love towards children, that children are innocent. Jesus loved and protected children. What's Yahweh's stance on children? Let's go read Deuteronomy 5.9. Alright. Do not bow down to any idol or worship it, for I am the Lord your God, and I tolerate no rivals. I bring punishment on those who hate me, and on their descendants, down to the third and fourth generation. But I show my love to thousands of generations, of those who love me and obey my laws. Terms and conditions apply. Now let's go read from Exodus 34.7. I keep my promises for thousands of generations, and forgive evil and sin. But I will not fail to punish children and grandchildren to the third and fourth generation for the sins of their parents. This here is a demonic being that punishes children. This is a product of child nightmares. Jesus protected, saved, and loved children and women. The women and children loved Jesus. There's a reason why. Now, not only does Yahweh punish children and grandchildren, but he also takes their lives. Let's get into the cases of Exodus 12.29, when he kills the firstborn sons of Egypt. At midnight, the Lord killed all the firstborn sons in Egypt, from the king's son who was heir to the throne, to the son of the prisoner in the dungeon, even though they were innocent. All the firstborn of the animals were also killed, also innocent. Now, Egyptians also kept pets, so that means pets were also killed, such as cats, dogs. That night, the king, his officials, and all the other Egyptians were awakened. There was a loud crying throughout Egypt, because there was not one home in which there was not a dead son. So here we have Yahweh killing innocent children. I've heard Christians state that if God decides to bring you into the earth just to kill you, then it's his right. This is a cult mindset. Yahweh is certainly considered to be somewhat of a psychopath. Christians today are mostly against abortion, but Yahweh causes miscarriages. He not only punishes and harms and kills children, but he even kills them while they're still in the womb, which is evil. So let's get into 2 Kings 19, miracles of Elijah. Some men from Jericho went to Elijah and said, "As you know, sir, this is a fine city, but the water is bad and causes miscarriages. Put some salt in a new bowl and bring it to me," he ordered. They brought it to him, and he went to the spring, threw the salt in the water and said, "This is what the Lord says. I make this water pure, and I will not cause any more deaths or miscarriages." So Yahweh was causing this. This is evil. Let's continue into 2 Kings 3.23. Elijah left Jericho to go to Bethel, and on the way some boys, young boys, came out of a town and made fun of him. "Get out of here, Baldy," they shouted. Elijah turned round and glared at them and cursed them in the name of the Lord. So he's used Yahweh's name. Then 2 she-bears came out of the woods and tore 42 of the boys to pieces. He then just casually left. Yahweh here has no problem taking any life regardless of age. Now, we'll find in Leviticus 26.18 that Yahweh will punish you for not obeying his commandments, and not only you, but he will punish and even kill your children and your animals. So if I was to worship this deity, it would be out of fear, not love. This is not the loving, compassionate, merciful God that Jesus spoke of. So Christians and Jews today worship the wrong God. Okay. If even after all this you still do not obey me, I will increase your punishment 7 times. I will break your stubborn pride. There will be no rain, and your land will be dry and as hard as iron, because he's a storm god, a rain god. All your hard work will do you no good, because your land will not produce crops, and the trees will not bear fruit. If you still continue to resist me and refuse to obey me, I will again increase your punishment 7 times. I will send dangerous animals among you, and they will kill your children, destroy your livestock, and leave so few of you that your roads will be deserted. If after all this punishment still you do not listen to me, but continue to defy me, then I will turn on you and punish you 7 times harder than before. I will bring war on you to punish you for breaking our covenant, and if you gather in your cities for safety, I will send incurable diseases among you. So here we have a vengeful God that demands worship and demands sacrificing, blood atonement. This God here demands vengeance. Jesus preached forgiveness, a different God. Now, Jesus had many women following him. He also saved and protected women. Not only this, but he was kind and compassionate and treated them equally. Yahweh was cruel and evil and unjust towards women. So let's get into the times that Yahweh punishes women. Let's get into Genesis 19.23. The sun was rising when Lot reached Zorah. Suddenly the Lord rained burning sulfur on the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and destroyed them, and the whole valley, along with all the people there, and everything that grew on the land. But Lot's wife looked back and was turned into a pillar of salt. She was killed for simply looking back at the old city's destruction. So let's get into some weird, disturbing laws in regards to women put in place by Yahweh. Deuteronomy 25.11. If 2 men are having a fight, and the wife of one tries to help her husband by grabbing hold of the other man's genitals, show her no mercy. Cut off her hand. Let's go to Deuteronomy 22.22. Now I'm going to censor one particular word, as YouTube won't like it, and these laws now are going to get dark. If a man is caught having intercourse with another man's wife, both of them are to be put to death. In this way, you will get rid of this evil. Suppose the man is caught in a town having intercourse with a girl who is engaged to someone else. You are to take them outside the town and stone them to death. The girl is to die because she did not cry out for help, although she was in a town where she could have been heard. And the man is to die because he had intercourse with a girl who was engaged. In this way, you will get rid of this evil. Suppose the man out in the countryside sexually assaults a girl who is engaged to someone else, then only the man is to be put to death. Nothing is to be done to the girl because she has not committed a sin worthy of death. This is the case, the same as when one man attacks another man and murders him. The man sexually assaulted the engaged girl in the countryside, and although she cried for help, there was no one to help her. Suppose the man is caught sexually assaulting a girl who is not engaged. he is to pay the girl's father the bride price of 50 pieces of silver, and she is to become his wife by force, because he forced her to have intercourse with him. He can never divorce her as long as he lives. There is all sorts of problems with that. Now, this is why Jesus was protecting and saving women, saving and protecting them from those who worshipped Yahweh. Now, let's get into the time when Yahweh, out of hate, punishes every single woman on earth. Let's get into this. Genesis 3:15. I will make you and the woman hate each other. Her offspring and yours will always be enemies. Her offspring will crush your head, and you will bite their heel. And he said to the woman, I will increase your trouble in pregnancy, and your pain in giving birth. In spite of this, you will still have the desire for your husband, yet you will be subject to him, so meaning that you will serve him, and now you will have pains in childbirth, because she ate a piece of fruit, or the fruit of knowledge. So, in other words, he was punishing them because humans now knew good and evil, so they were able to recognize the evil of Yahweh. Now, not only was Yahweh vengeful, jealous, downright evil and scary as batshit at times, but he was also the God of feces, animal and human feces. Poo. Let's get into it. Ezekiel 4:10. You will be allowed 230 grams of bread a day, and it will have to last you until the next day. You will also have a limited amount of water to drink, 2 cups a day. You are to build a fire out of dried human excrement, human poo, bake bread on the fire, and eat it where everyone can see you. Ugh. Yeah. The Lord said, this represents the way the Israelites will have to eat food which the Lord forbids when I scatter them to foreign countries. So, if they're not in their home countries, those who worship Yahweh are meant to bake their bread on human poo and eat it where everyone can see. Thanks, Yahweh. But let's continue. It gets slightly better. But I replied, No, sovereign Lord, this is Ezekiel, I have never defiled myself. From childhood on, I have never eaten meat from any animal that died a natural death or was killed by wild animals. I have never eaten any food considered unclean. So God said, Very well, I'll let you use cow dung instead, and you can bake your bread on that. Nasty. Disgusting. Yahweh is cruel, even to those who worship him. Okay, so Yahweh and more poo. The book of Malachi 2.2. You must honour me by what you do. If you will not listen to what I say, then I will bring a curse on you. I will put a curse on all things you receive for your support. In fact, I have already put a curse on them, because you do not take my command seriously. I will punish your children and rub your faces in the dung of animals you sacrifice, and you will be taken out to the dunghill. So, more shit from Yahweh. Now, Jesus states in John 8:44 to the Sadducees and Pharisees, the high priest, that they worship their father who is the devil. He's been a liar and murderer since the beginning. When they went to stone a woman, Jesus saved that woman. They were responsible for giving Jesus into the Romans. Them and the Romans were responsible for killing Jesus because he stood up and challenged their authority. So, that was just some examples on the horrible deeds of Yahweh. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, join the channel, leave a comment, it helps the channel grow, and have a lovely day, a lovely night, many blessings, peace and love, lots of gnosis, and namaste.